Hey, world history students. Today we are talking about World War I, which is a huge topic. Um, the war itself goes from 1914 to 1918, which I don't have you remember too many dates in here, but those are ones that you got to know. It started in 1914 and ended in 1918. All right. Today, though, we're looking at the causes of World War I. Why did it start? And then once we're there, what did the actual war look like? Because it's going to be very different than previous wars. All right, for a second, pause the video and take a look at the map. You're going to see that our major players this unit are going to be Germany, Russia, Austria-Hungary, Serbia, Ottoman Empire, and then on your allied side, you got Italy, France, Great Britain, and as I already mentioned, Russia. All right, so those are going to be our main players. We're going to mention the other ones as well, but those are our main ones we're going to talk about. All right, to understand the causes and why World War I or the Great War happened, you got to remember the main causes. All right, and MAIN is an acronym, and MAIN stands for militarism, alliances, imperialism, and nationalism. Those four things all put together are going to cause World War I to start. And we're going to see it kind of set the stage for a spark to set it off. So militarism. At this time in Europe, there was a growing competition thanks to their imperialism nature by gaining all that territory overseas. And another big way in which they were competing was to who had the largest and best military. Many people saw this as being very aggressive because you're building larger and larger armies. And what you use those armies for are not necessarily defense. It's kind of aggressive. And therefore, your other countries are afraid that they're going to get attacked, and therefore they build a larger army themselves. So you get these bigger and bigger armies, and then what you notice is that it becomes unstable throughout the region. You're worried that one thing is going to set a country off and go to war. And so that's going to be a big problem, is that you had these huge militaries and countries with leaders that weren't afraid to use them. Another big part, and you got to understand this, was the alliances or friendships between the nations. And they basically went like this. If you were a member of an alliance and one of the members went to war, then it was your obligation to go to war with them. Okay. The problem was there were two big alliances. You had the Triple Entente and the Triple Alliance. And what you notice here is that you have France, Britain, and Russia, along with Serbia to a lesser extent, all being allies during this time period. And they had that agreement with one another. On the other hand, you had Germany, Austria-Hungary, and the Ottoman Empire would form their own alliance. And what we're going to notice here in a second is that that's going to cause a problem, because if one of them goes to war, it's going to end up all of them are going to war. And that's one of the big reasons as to why. Another cause is you have the imperialism going on, like we talked about last unit. Places all over the world, they're grabbing it left and right, and there's a huge competition, and people are upset that they're grabbing all this territory very quickly. Especially people are upset at Britain and France for taking all that land and not leaving a whole lot for the rest of them. They see that as a challenge to their authority. So there's a big competition there, and it's causing egos to clash. And finally, you have nationalism, which kind of relates to all of them. But basically, it's a deep pride in one's nation, where you have people competing from these different countries to who has the best country. And if your country isn't the best, then you're looked down upon, and they can't let that happen. And one way to save face is by beating another country in war. And so war was seen as being honorable. And if you won war, then you were more prestigious and you are a better country. So it was a different time period then. And they had deep national pride, and they showed that pride by going to war and trying to win wars. So those four things, militarism, alliances, imperialism, and nationalism, were all main causes and kind of set the stage. But there was no spark yet. All right, there's nothing to set them off. These are all things that lead to it. But there has to be some event that causes people to get upset and go to war, right? Insert Archduke Franz Ferdinand. All right. He was the heir to the Austria-Hungarian throne, and he was assassinated by a member of the Serbian mafia at the time, known as the Black Hand. And they ended up assassinating him because of his views. They did not like Austria-Hungary. They thought they were going to take Serbia over, and to prevent that, they killed the guy that they thought was going to do it. Okay, this set off a chain of events. It's going to cause Austria-Hungary to go to war with Serbia. And remember, because of the alliance system, you have Austria-Hungary's allies now going to war as well. So if Austria-Hungary goes to war, then you have Germany going to war, and you have all sorts of chains of events that take place. All right, so that assassination of Archduke Ferdinand was the spark, and therefore it set off the events in 1914 where Austria-Hungary is going to declare war on Serbia. The problem was, after Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia, Russia was Serbia's ally and then declared war on Austria-Hungary. Okay, well, if Austria-Hungary is at war with Russia, Germany has to come to their defense because that's Austria-Hungary's ally. And so Germany now declares war on Russia. And well, now you got the same domino effect taking place where now if Russia's at war with Germany, France has got to come to Russia's aid because they're in alliance. Okay, so now Germany is at war with France. And also a member of France's allies was England. England, France, and Russia were now at war with Germany and Austria-Hungary, along with a few others we're going to talk about in a minute. But the alliance system led the domino effect that caused everyone to go to war with one another. All right, this is what the map looked like of countries fighting against one another during this time period. So you have Great Britain, France, Russia, and Serbia on the Allied side, Germany, Austria-Hungary, and just down here is going to be the Ottoman Empire on the central side, the central powers. All right, this is what it looks like. You can pause this and kind of get an idea of who all is on each side. Notice the United States is not on either side yet until 1917. All right, and the war is only from 1914 and 1918, so it's going to be a ways before they enter the war. They're kind of neutral at this time, but they will join later on the Allied side. All right, so the types of fighting that we see in World War I are very different. You have trenches being dug all over the place, all right, and these trenches are in terrible condition. They're cold, wet, unsanitary. You have people dying from disease. You got rats all in the areas. You have dead bodies everywhere. It smells terrible. And then you have two sets of these trenches going along France's border in the western front, along with Germany, the France-Germany border up till Belgium. And then you have the Russian border with Germany on the eastern front. So those are two sets of trench lines that were dug. Take a pause here on the video and look at how the trench systems work. All right, we also have huge new weapons. All right, because of the Industrial Revolution, this was a very different warfare. Now we're seeing things like the machine guns and other things that you see here. Let's go in a little bit more depth of these things that led to all these deaths. Machine guns, number one, can mow people down. You didn't even have to aim. You just fired up amongst them and multiple people died. It was very deadly. We had millions of people die in this war. We also have bolt action rifles that could repeat very quickly and therefore could be reloaded quickly and shoot again. So this is increasing the number of deaths. Also, you have artillery, which are big, kind of like cannons, but they fire explosives, and it caused a lot of damage. You could fire them into the trenches, and you would never see it coming because it comes from miles away. Another big part of it is going to be poison gas, and this was pretty horrific. You can see the effects here of the poison gas that would use. They would use those artillery shells, load it with poisonous gas into the trenches, and people would slowly die over the course of a couple of weeks after their skin deteriorated, their lungs were burnt out, and it was very terrible. So you had to have a gas mask during this time or you were not going to survive the war. We also see the introduction of tanks that allow you to go from trench to trench without being cut down by the machine gun. That's going to be huge. Additionally, you finally have fighter planes entering wars where you can shoot down other planes, and also you have U-boats, which are submarines for the first time, being used extensively. And we're going to talk about how the U-boats got the U.S. Into the war later on. So those are some of the things that we're looking at this unit. Please go back through and make sure you're familiar with all the different technology and causes of the war. Remember MAIN, M-A-I-N.